All right, slide.
Did we do it to just the three of us?
Yes. Yeah, we got that. Okay. We will call the Board of Zoning Appeals hearing to order, and Mr. Engelhardt, the planning director, is not with us tonight. He had a doctor's appointment, but so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order for Wednesday, April 12th, 2023. First, and for the record, there are three members here. That does constitute a quorum. So unless there's anyone who has an objection to us proceeding with the bare quorum, we will do so and proceed to hold the hearing. On the first matter of the agenda is the approval of minutes for February 8th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
I move.
All right.
I'll second.
All right, and
I wasn't here, but I have read the minutes.
that's fine. Yeah, and I concur. Carolyn, as she always does, takes very detailed minutes, so they're very accurate, and there we are. I would also like to defer item number 2, the election of chairman and vice chairman, because I think that should be done by the full board rather than just 3 of us. So we'll defer on that. Because I was the last chairman chosen by you all, I'll act as the interim chairman and move forward. So we're here with the application of Brett and Megan Hines requesting what Dave has said is a special exception from the building setback lines for the proposed construction of a mixed-use building to be built. And all the board members have the application, which was provided in our packet. And actually what it is, and the applicants have correctly stated that they are requesting a variance for the construction of a mixed-use commercial and residential structure on the property. However, due to the lot size and irregular triangular shape of the lot, they are requesting a variance from the required setbacks from the building to the curb, which will allow them to maximize the internal space of the building. So the applicant or the applicant's representative are here, and you can sit down for a minute, because what I want to do is explain for the folks that with respect to the variance provisions there in section 108, 165 of the Berlin Code, which says that when the literal enforcement of the requirements of the article would involve practical difficulty or would cause unnecessary hardship, unnecessary to carry out the spirit and purpose of the chapter, the board may, upon a proper application, grant such variance from the terms of the chapter as will relieve such hardship. And it says, for the record, which can be considered, I know I'm not prejudging anything, the board may also attach thereto such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed structure or use as may be deemed necessary in the interest of the furtherance of the purpose of the zoning chapter and in the public interest. So with that introduction, I'll ask, are the 2 of you going to testify?
Yep.
Yes, if you'll stand up, raise your right hand. I'll swear you both in at the same time. You do solemnly declare under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth and the whole truth.
Yes.
Okay, state your name and address, please.
Yeah, Brett Hines, 21 Jefferson Street is the property owner.
And I'm Eric Pepper. I live at 111 West Street in downtown Berlin.
but I'm here representing C Studio Architects as the project architect.
Okay.
We are out of Millville, Delaware.
And and gentlemen, speak up, if you will, into the microphone so that everybody, because there are folks here, and since this is the only thing on the agenda, I presume they're here looking at this request. You're representative of the preparer of the site plan, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Whoever wants to testify.
Yeah, thank you for being here tonight, and I know Dave can't be here, so thank you for making sure this meeting went on. Yeah, we would like to build, as the application says, a mixed-use commercial residential spot there on 21 Jefferson, and it's obviously a very small piece of land that is going to require some negotiation on how we can best find a good use for that space. So we are requesting that we can take a look at the variances and have some setbacks from what the code says for larger lots. So, Eric, take it.
You are required to provide to the board whether the denial of the variance would cause practical difficulty for your use and enjoyment of your property.
Yes, it would.
I'll speak to this. So the lot area without the setbacks is only 3,783 square feet. The lot area, the buildable lot area with 10-foot setbacks on both Gage Street and Jefferson Street is reduced all the way down to less than half of that, which is about 1,536 square feet, which really makes it impossible to build a structure worth building there that can have any economic viability, in the long term. And it also is not really in keeping with the street organization of that particular unique portion of downtown, which is kind of on the fringe of the particular district, that the adjacent building. Yeah, the adjacent lot, if you go to the site plan, this is kind of built all the way up to both Jefferson Street and Gage Street on both sides.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. I was going to ask you to pull up the site plan so that the folks could see. This is the triangular shaped lot which goes to the confluence of Gay and Jefferson Streets, I believe.
Correct.
And therefore it comes to a point down at the end.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay. You can put the rendering back up unless you all have something that you want to testify to regarding, obviously the lot is triangular and as you said, the required setbacks would substantially reduce the use of the property.
Correct.
Okay.
And to add on the site plan, Carolyn, the adjoining property owner, I don't know Jeff's address, but Jeff Oxford Studios right there. We've agreed that there, even though the setbacks show that we could build right close to his building, we both agree that it would make sense to leave some space there, so that way we can access mechanical needs and potential egress and stuff from interior units and things. So
Potentially provide parking.
yeah, and potentially provide parking in that area where is the widest part of the lot. So it sets us back even a little bit tighter than what we could build on.
And there's a 0-foot setback on that side.
Yeah, on Jeff's side.
Okay. And for the record, Carolyn, I'm presuming that what the folks are seeing now, which are the site plan render and the renderings, are considered part of the official record before the board.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I don't know how this factors in, but I'd just like to state that the site plan that includes the proposed building is at this point still conceptual to a certain degree, just because of the uniqueness of the lot and us really not being able to develop from a design perspective without, having some idea what variances that we would be granted are. So there's been time put into it, but it is, the site plan and the rendering are not the final building.
Well, I understand now. You, of course, realize this board does not have site plan approval. That'll be before the planning commission.
Of course.
And if I'm not mistaken, is this in the historic district?
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So have you either been before the planning commission or the historic district commission?
In order to get our plans to that level of detail, we need to know where the footprint of the building is going to be.
Understand.
And so we have postponed that because it's very expensive to develop these plans. So we
No, I
wanted to
understand.
start
This
with
is the
you.
first step because your variance will determine the extent and configuration of your building to a large degree.
You got it.
But you do realize that any of our approvals are simply as a response, if we grant your approval, it's simply a response to your application tonight. It does not constitute any approval of anything other than your requested setback variance,
Of
right?
course. Of course. Yep.
Okay,
Of course.
all right. Anything else that you all want to bring before the board?
No?
Any questions, board members?
On this one drawing that was labeled previously approved, I believe the only variance requested on this was a 5-foot setback from the property line on the, I think that would be the south side. Is that correct? Do you recall? I mean, it's labeled
That was,
site plan previously approved.
that was,
Right, that was, we are using that to the best of our knowledge for whatever plans that we saw of that project.
that was not our project.
That was Habitat for
Yeah, it's not
Humanity.
Exactly.
But I mean, I do notice that the only setback variance that was requested here, I think, was 5 feet off of Jefferson Street. What are you requesting?
Yeah.
We're requesting 10 feet reduction, so 0 feet setback on both property
Zero
lines.
on both streets?
Right. Now, if there is some, I don't know what type of stipulation could be in place to say 0 feet setback from the property line that adjoins the neighboring property to the northeast, 0-foot setback across a certain distance perpendicular to that property line. Because obviously, we're not proposing to build all the way out to the tip
Yeah.
of the lot.
Yeah.
That is.
No, I wasn't aware you were looking for 0 setbacks on both streets. I was building a lot of it.
Yeah, I frankly wasn't either.
It seems
Because
extreme
I-
to me, to be honest with you.
Well, that was like where we would like to start with the conversation. The building that we will be neighboring has, to the best of our knowledge, without having that property surveyed by us, the projection, or the distance from the sidewalk on the south side of that building is approximately 1 foot, and the distance to the property line on the north side of the building is approximately 3 feet. So that would be kind of our next request, if we could build up to that for this projection of that building on both sides
What is the percentage of lot coverage?
of our building.
Yeah. If you-
I'm not
if
sure
you
yet.
have- have
I'm
you
not
done
sure
that?
yet exactly. Yeah, I haven't calculated it because there's still pushing and pulling going on. It might be on one of those site plans we
And
calculated.
I don't know that I saw anything with that. Woody, for the record, you're a surveyor. I wasn't frankly aware they were asking for 0.
I wasn't either. I honestly thought you were asking for 5 feet off of both streets, which I did not have much of an issue with, even though the drawing you were basing it on was only requesting a 5-foot setback off of Jefferson, and they held a 10-foot setback off of Gay Street, which is a very narrow street anyway, they're all narrow. But the other site plan that was approved required 4 parking spaces, and we had 4 parking spaces. I don't know at this point from your details, because there's not a lot of detail here,
Yeah.
designating how much setbacks and some of that stuff. what you're going to require. But I only see 2 parking spaces for an apartment on the 3rd floor. I mean, it seems like it's an awful lot for this lot. The other use being proposed is a tap house. I believe a tap house, you know, a lot of people are going to come to a tap house and they use a drive, right? I mean, they're going to need a place to park. And I'm wondering where this is going to occur. That is something, according to the code, you have to plan for and prepare for it. Where do you, how much, I don't even know how much parking you're going to require here, but again, this is a site plan issue. You're looking for variance requests from us. There's just a lot of detail that I don't see here that makes it hard to decide
Yeah.
how to judge.
If I could speak from how we're kind of going about the design perspective.
Speak up, please, so everybody can hear.
Yeah, it just becomes like a really tricky, like, way to address it, and I'm not sure what the best back and forth is, because we need to design something that kind of meets the programmatic needs of the restaurant space on the ground floor and, you know, within variances, so we almost need to get like a variance approved before we can figure out exactly where the parking can go. We didn't want to come to you with a 100%, this is the final design for a building, and then, you know, have to chop 5 feet off of it. I know it's much easier if we come the specific variance request, but
I'm wondering if it wouldn't have been better to go to the planning commission and get their input. I'm not saying a final design, but at least an input on what they would be willing to consider on that lot. It is a unique lot, there's no question.
yeah, we have consulted
And
with
even
members.
the, even the historic, well, not the historic commission, not planning commission
Right.
first. Just to see what they would want for a site plan, what they would agree to, because you are proposing an awful lot on here.
Well, and let me say for the record, I missed the fact that this was a 0 setback from both sides. I frankly did. That's why I asked Woody, because I'm not a surveyor. I wanted to see whether there was something here that would have told me that, but Mr. Bunning, of course, is a registered surveyor, and he did not discern it either. I'm not the only vote here and that kind of thing, but the consideration that the board has is the determination. I had thought when you were talking about matters that would go to the planning commission, that it would be within the parameters requested, and you had these, and it was just a determination of their configuration and that type of thing on site plan. But what it appears, respectfully, that what you're saying is that you want this 0 setback so that you can then determine what you're going to do with the site. I'm not sure that that's the right way to do it. For the record, the planning commission can make site plan considerations subject, as we can, subject to approval of other requirements. Necessarily, that would be the Historic District Commission, but it would also be if they determine their site plan analysis showed that 0 setbacks were a site plan that was not detrimental to surrounding properties, then they could do that and we could make our determination. What and again, just a consideration, I'm not sure that it would not be better for you, and it's your decision, to ask for a postponement of the determination of the board until some of these questions can be answered. Because and again, Carolyn, I don't have it right in the top of my mind, but I know under many codes there is a prohibition for coming back within a certain period of time for a same or similar request, and I would prefer that you not get yourself in that. Am I correct, Carolyn?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. So I don't think you want to be delayed by a questionable circumstance tonight from the board, and I'm not prejudging anything, I'm just giving you all my feelings, but you all can say what you want to say also, so. And it's up to you all, if you want to go ahead tonight, then we're not saying you can't do it.
If I'm hearing you correctly, you would say that with kind of the planning commission's, you know, more or less approval of our site plan, then you would then
No,
be more,
no, what I'm saying is that there are so many questions that what you have, and I don't say this disrespectfully, but what you're saying is you want us to give you a zero setback so you can figure out what to do with the lot and figure out the use of the lot. I'm not sure that you ought to not go to the planning commission first, get their intake, because they have, all you've asked us for is a 0 side yard setback, period. And if we granted it tonight, the planning commission is not bound to do anything except not to deny it because of that setback provision. They may have other concerns such as parking, the configuration, the use of the property, and that type of thing, which is their purview in site plan approval. So the concept, again, is a nice concept because everybody's entitled to some use of land. But, and for the record, the practical difficulty, you don't have to show the denial would take away all use of the land, but you are obligated under Maryland law to show that a practical difficulty would deprive you of a beneficial use of the land that would otherwise be allowed. So, I mean, that's the stand, that's not our, that's what the law says is your obligation when you come to the board. So, again, my notion is that, and it's up to you all, that if the board would go along, I would not oppose a postponement until you all decide to come back before the board. Now, whether that's before or after site plan, again, is not our call, but it just seems there are a lot of questions here that remain,
yeah.
at least in my mind, so.
In what format or fashion, say, should we go and or meet with the planning commission?
Well, I don't want to
Would we document their recommendations or their kind of?
I don't want to give you advice, but that's up to you all. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of questions that remain unanswered. So it may be, and Mr. Engelhardt, the planning director, certainly will be able to at least discuss with you what he feels is the way to go. If he says go back to the board, then you're welcome to come back here. We're not going to prevent that.
Yeah, well, I think that, and I'm speaking for myself, but you as well, I think that has been our consult to date, both through meeting with members of the planning commission and, you know, your consult from Dave to approach the Board of Zoning and Appeals.
Well, you've heard the questions. If you want us to vote tonight, we're not going to stop you, but that's your call.
Just for your, I mean, I tend to agree with everything Joe said. And I'm willing to make a motion to table this, but if you want us to proceed, it might be a different motion.
As drawn.
We're projecting, I don't know. What's that? Yeah, I mean, we would like postponement, but I'm just not sure what the
What the next steps are,
What the
yeah.
next
I mean,
steps.
it's- you laid it out, but we've talked.
We're
with
not
some members.
giving you advice, but you all are going to have to determine that. And if it's to come back here, then we're not going to prevent that. But you've heard our concerns. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. Can I ask one more question? Would you be able to, you know, kind of as I described, grant a variance for
No.
any length of the property line?
No.
I'm not saying tonight, but if we were to request, let's say, perpendicular to a certain property line, that's where we want a 0-foot setback, not for the entire length of a property line.
Well, I'm not sure what you're asking. Mr. Bunning has indicated what we granted before, but I'm not saying that we're limited to that. But unless you've got a severe time constraint for some reason, it's up to you. It's up to you.
And the other issue I had with the plans is, I guess, and it's Joe's comment, it's hard to determine what you're asking for here. And even though I looked at them, there are certain lines here that aren't labeled as to what they are. So I don't know if you were dealing with an overhang, if you were dealing
I thought we were dealing with
the
an
wall of the
overhang.
building. I was looking at walls of the building, and I felt somewhat comfortable with some of the stuff I saw, but the detail's not here. It's not here for us to really decide. So that's kind of all I have to say.
Yeah.
Discussion for another time. I mean, we would accept the postponement.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
We would prefer the postponement
Okay.
until we can.
Is there? Yeah, and not to prejudge the thing, Mr. Bunning has already said he's willing to take a motion to table, but there are folks here. Does anyone want to be heard on this before the request is considered, the request for postponement is considered? Okay, let the record show nobody has raised their hand, so we'll presume that you all are accommodated to whatever the board does with regard to the request. So there's a motion to table.
Motion to table.
Right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I agree. I think that is, and what that does is, it is a table of the determination which does two things. Number one, it does not prohibit you from coming back at any time which fits the accommodation of the planning staff, but it also does not require you to make a new application because our application is here. What you have said, as long as whatever you come back is for a variance from the required setbacks from the building to the curb, we'll be able to do it on this application. You don't have to pay for a new one or anything like that. And Carolyn, unless you all say otherwise, I don't think we need to re-advertise.
No.
Okay.
Not for that.
All right. It'll be on the website as to a rescheduled hearing.
Yes.
Right, okay.
We can amend the specifics.
Well, I think you heard us, we'd like to hear
Yes.
specifics.
Right.
Yes.
But would you like those specifics to be part of the application?
Well, I don't care as long as you all tell us, again, I'm trying not to prejudge this, but 0 setbacks are frequent throughout the town, but those are on buildings that were built prior to zoning. And you all have the zoning required setbacks. So we would certainly, I think, counsel you that specifics are good because then we can tell exactly what we're being asked to grant. Okay?
Got it.
Okay.
And again, whether you all choose to go to the planning commission to get their intake, you're telling me that the general consensus was to come here first, and normally that would be fine. But the detail did not tell us you were asking for 0 setbacks from both sides of the lot line. We had the previous request that we granted, which we thought was going to be somehow similar to what you asked for. Now, I'm not saying it has to be that limited, but what I mean is, you gotta show us that the denial of the variance is depriving you of a significant use of the property that you would otherwise have the right to. That's the standard that we're bound by. Okay?
Got it.
Okay. Anything else to come before the board? All right, is there a motion?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay. Yes?
Yes.
Yep, we're adjourned. Thanks. Thanks for coming, Clay.